Welcome to the Church Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Don Hicks. The focus of this podcast is to provide coaching, equipping, and strengthening of church leaders who will lead and equip the believers for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ. This will enable healthy leaders and healthy churches to flourish and thrive as they carry out the Great Commission, the Great Commandment, in the power of the Holy Spirit. All right, Chaplain Earls, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you made a decision to become a chaplain.
Yeah, sure, thank you. My name is Josh Earls. I'm the command chaplain on the USS Ford, the Navy's newest aircraft carrier. In that responsibility, I also am the command chaplain for the carrier strike group that the Ford is attached to. So in doing that, I have about 8 chaplains and about 15 enlisted personnel that I'm responsible for, and directing the command religious ministry for both the ship and the strike group. For myself, I'm a Liberty Baptist Fellowship chaplain. Went to Liberty from 2001 to 2005, and then graduated from the seminary, not School of Religion anymore, but the seminary, School of Divinity, right? Whatever it is now.
It's now the seminary.
The seminary again. There we go. In 2008, and then came into the Navy in 2009. How I became a chaplain? That's a great question. As you can tell from the dates, I was a freshman in college in 2001 when a pretty significant event happened in the history of our nation. So after 9/11, I wondered how I could merge what I felt were the two callings of my life previously, to go into ministry, and secondarily to the needs of our nation, as we were seemingly going to be in a time of war, or at least defense, for the next foreseeable future. And I wanted to know how to combine those things. And I'm not from a military family, so I had no idea that chaplaincy was even a possibility until my junior year of college. And I was in a history class with an Army ROTC buddy of mine, and he said his dad was coming into town and would I like to go to dinner. And you know, as a college student who doesn't appreciate a free dinner, so of course I'm going to dinner, and I wanted to do the nice thing and ask him about his dad. So I asked, what does his father do? And he said he's a chaplain in the Army. And I was a little confused about what that meant. And as soon as he told me what a chaplain does in the military, it was God turning on the light switch, so to speak, of that's how they merge. And from that point on, I pursued naval chaplaincy until I went into the Navy in 2009.
Okay, so you're command chaplain of a strike force in USS Ford.
Yes.
So how many sailors is that you're responsible for?
Yeah, so when the strike group is all brought together on the Ford itself, we'll have about 4,500 sailors, and then probably an extra 1,000 sailors on the various ships that are also part of the strike group.
So you got pretty much a mega church.
Yeah, to some degree, or a mega missionary opportunity at the same time. Yeah.
That's great. What are some of the things that you can give advice to people that are thinking about chaplaincy, or even maybe a chaplain candidate right now?
Sure, I would say one, we need you and we want you. So please really pray about it, really think about it. I will give Dr. Hicks my personal cell phone number. I know maybe the Army's got your eye, or the Air Force. I don't want you to pay attention to any of those. I want you to come into the Navy and the great opportunities we have in the Navy as we serve the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard. So you want to talk about diversity of ministry experience. I can tell you some stories over the last 16 years of the ministry experience that I've had. But what I would say is, one, you're needed, both in the numbers that we need, but also in the opportunity to really impact people's lives in the midst of the people themselves. So our young men and women, and our older women and men who are still in active duty military service, really need chaplains to come alongside them, to care for them, to show them the love of Christ in and through the gospel, and to preach the word to them as well. And the opportunity to be able to do that in various places, underway on a ship, in Afghanistan, in training environments, in various places, on submarines that I've gotten to do, has just been amazing. So I would say it's a great opportunity to do that. And then finally, I would say be patient. It's quite a road. You know, I was a junior in college when I finally figured out that that's what God was leading me to, and it took another 6 years in order to qualify to come into the chaplaincy. The chaplain candidate, as Dr. Hicks said, is a great way to kind of start that process a little bit, to kind of let you see what it's really like, and you can have some on-the-job training opportunities to hopefully we can sink our teeth into you, that you never want to leave us and you always want to come back to Navy chaplaincy. But I would say we need you. 2, there's great opportunities and the people you serve really need you. 3, that be patient. It's quite a long process to get in, but it is rewarding and it is so meaningful to the people doing the ministry, myself, my wife, my family, and to those we're ministering to.
Okay, what are some of the challenges if you're married and you have a spouse and children, and what are some of the ways that you can put some preventative things in to keep that marriage strong?
Yeah. So in a week or so, I will be celebrating 21 years of marriage with my beautiful bride, who I met at Liberty. Way to go. We have 2 daughters, you know, and it creates some unique challenges. On top of the unique challenges, we have some more of our own. Our oldest daughter is a special needs child, and that means I've been away for some very tough experiences and happenings and conversations that my wife has had to deal with alone, and that's never kind of missed on my side of how much I ask of my family to support me in times of being away from them. I will say, even in the hardship, it's a great blessing, because we can talk all the time about how to, you know, really treasure and appreciate and cherish your spouse and your children, but nothing makes you do that more than being away from them for quite a lot of time. So it kind of, my wife and I have realized it's renewed our marriages as it brings it afresh. Our connection with one another. You know, this upcoming deployment that we'll experience will be our 5th of significant time away from each other, so it kind of makes it a brand new, fresh thing for us. But to kind of support and to care for one another, pray together and pray often for each other, even in the distance. To the chaplains who would be there if you're going to be gone and underway and things like that. Think ahead and kind of think, how can I bridge the gap or the distance between myself and my spouse and my family, even if you know, it's not allowed to be there in person. So I've tried to do some of those things, whether it's record videos for my kids that they can play back every day if they want to, whether it's hiding gifts for my wife throughout the house so she can just find them through. Or last year I was deployed to Australia. I had my in-laws and friends and family kind of fly into Southern California, and they celebrated my 20th wedding anniversary with my wife while I was gone. And you know, it was a great time for my wife to feel that she was loved and cared for. And those are some of the things that we do to kind of support one another as a family, even through the distance.
That's great. So what word do you have to pastors? I have found out, and I have many students that are chaplain candidates, and then they finish their education, they get everything done, then they've got to do this 2-year active in ministry within a church. So what word would you give to pastors or churches so that they can be open to basically allowing you to come in there, get ministry experience, and then of course the benefit is you're going to be a missionary from that church, and your uncle's going to take care of you, Uncle Sam on that. But what's the word you'd have to them, how they can also support your sailors and in ways that are meaningful to them?
Yeah, I think for the sailors and the support of that, if you find yourself in kind of a military concentration area, so like right now we're in Norfolk, Virginia, where there are plenty of good, thriving, healthy churches, they're going to have multiple service members in their congregations, which means they're going to have families that are separated on the regular, and they need to be thinking about how to support those people who have that distance, and whether that's joining together with them as groups, right? Because there's something about being a military family member and a spouse, you can kind of speak shorthand to one another, and you know the kind of pressure points that other people just can't really imagine because they've never gone through it. So doing things like that, caring for them, whether that be some services around the home that might need to be cared for because the person who usually takes care of that is gone, or just generally acknowledging and praying for them in public forums, so that people are aware of the hardships that they're going through, that your congregation can then keep them in the mind's eye in order to support them. So that's, I think, a way that sailors can be supported, even single sailors, married sailors, whatever that might be. In terms of the chaplains coming in, I think you put it an excellent way, that they should think about this as missions work. You know, I think we've been schooled and trained, and especially the evangelical community, to think about and promote and support foreign missions. I want you to think about this the exact same way. It is almost foreign missions. You know, it is a unique experience where we both straddle the line of being ministers of the gospel and government employees all at the same time. It's unique and it's difficult, and we need to prepare our people to do that. We need to champion its cause. We need to take on the hardships of maybe just training ministers for a couple years so that they can be qualified per the Department of Defense to come in on active duty. And we need to realize that's a sacrifice that the local churches need to start taking on, so that we can continue to get godly, equipped ministers of the gospel into the military, so that chaplaincy can be effective, meaningful, sought after, so that real strides in the formation of the gospel in people's lives in the military can happen.
Well, we were talking today, and so what would you like to say to Dr. Keith about an opportunity to come on campus and say, I'm an active chaplain, and here's what you do? Sure.
Dr. Keith has loads of chaplaincy experience in his time in the Air Force, and he has a perspective and understanding as you know, from those that I can't ever imagine. And as an endorsing agent for LBF, he knows the ins and the outs far better than I do about some things. But I think there's value in hearing from people who are actively engaged, because chaplaincy changes, right? Chaplaincy in the Air Force, chaplaincy in the Army, chaplaincy in the Navy is unique to the branches that we serve. It is, I think, common in what we're out there to do, to love people in and through the gospel of Christ, but it's unique doing it kind of in the moment. And I think there's some opportunities where LBF could bring in some active duty chaplains to some of these classes to really put a face-to-face time with the students to say, or maybe through Zoom or something like that, to say like, hey, this is what active duty chaplaincy today looks like. Here are some of the things that are happening. Here are the concerns that we are having. Here are some of the ministry opportunities that we are going through. Here are some of the difficulties and the roadblocks we are hitting. Here are the things you need to be thinking about, training on, focusing on before you come on to active duty, so you're kind of not behind the power curve, so to speak.
I think it'd be great too for just Q&A.
Yeah.
I mean, I've learned a lot of things here. You know, it's you wear a cover when you go through the hangar deck, and then you have to have situational awareness, because people are saluting you and you're saluting them back, and everybody's trying to figure out what rank they are.
Yeah.
But I just really appreciate the time that you've given today. It's allowed me to come on board the USS Ford, and great tour.
Thank you. Glad to have you guys. Thanks for taking the time to come out.
The Church Leadership in Focus podcast is sponsored by Church Health Solutions. You may contact the host, Don Hicks, by email at don@churchhealthsolutions.com. Don welcomes ideas on church leadership topics from you that may be used in the future episodes of Church Leadership in Focus podcast. I invite you to share our link with others you know in church leadership and on your social media. Be sure to tune in for our next weekly episode. May the Lord Jesus give you wisdom and guidance as you lead and equip your church.